I'm in a bit of a predicament here, my dudes. Oh god, what now? Well damn, let me explain first. So I usually have a good idea of whether or not I'd recommend a game by the time I sit down to write one of these reviews. But much like NeoCab's protagonist, Lena, I find myself paralyzed at the thought of making a decision. If I haven't mentioned before, I have a fairly straightforward criteria for evaluating games. A game needs to be one of two things, entertaining or engaging. This way, I avoid the pitfall of comparing something like Doom 2016 to Spec Ops: The Line, because they both excel in different ways. Spec Ops: The Line is a fantastic piece of escapist entertainment, while Doom 2016 thoughtfully explores the dangers of the war hero fantasy in a way that only the medium of video games can. Wait, hang on. NeoCab aims for the second category, but I'm still having a hard time figuring out if it actually succeeds. So this is gonna be less a review and more me working through my deranged thoughts for a few minutes. Feel free to tag along, and who knows, maybe we'll bond and discover the merits of jolly cooperation, or possibly catch some horrible disease and die. Anyway, let's go over the plot. In the distant cyberpunk future, a corporation called Capra has revolutionized AI-driven cabs. You play as Lena, a former Capra employee who now works for NeoCab, a company that still employs human drivers. She's decided to leave her hometown to live with her old friend Savvy in the neon-lit city of Los Hoyos. After reuniting with Savvy, however, Lena notices that she's acting strange. But before she can pin her down with questions, Savvy gives her a feel-good bracelet and bolts off. Hours pass and Savvy is nowhere to be seen, so now Lena must figure out what happened to her in between giving rides to the city's eccentric residents. It's hard to know where to start when discussing NeoCab, because it is, for better and worse, ambitious. In the span of about 4.5 hours, it tackles some, sadly, relevant themes of corporations exploiting social upheaval for financial gain, abuse of friendships, and everyone's favorite topic, AI. But like a man at a buffet who's put too much food on his plate, it's a bit of a mess, and the tasty chicken has been buried under some moldy potato salad. Savvy and Lena's one-sided friendship is the heart of the story, which is unfortunate because I hated that bitch from the moment she set foot in Lena's cab. But maybe that's to the game's credit. Savvy is, admittedly, fairly well written. Her passive-aggressive attitude is depicted in a realistic way, avoiding any cartoonish stereotypes and getting at the heart of why it can be so difficult to leave a toxic friendship. She's entirely believable, and I think that's why she was so immediately off-putting to me. You know, that's actually part of the problem. Savvy is too unlikable. Yeah, that's the point. The game's all about Lena finally working up the courage to end a miserable, one-sided friendship. I know that, but I'm supposed to want to find her, remember? That's what's driving, no pun intended, the whole story. I think if Savvy wasn't so immediately hateable, I would have been more invested in finding her. An easy fix would be to make her friendlier at the start, leaving you to wonder, why didn't things work out between Savvy and Lena in the past? And then as you get further into the game, her manipulative nature reemerges, and you go, oh, that's why. So that's a pretty big swing and a miss for the main storyline, but the passenger stories are decently engaging, and the game does a good job of fleshing out these characters and the brief interactions you have with them.
I just heard about they're gonna jack a load of these Pokemon cards.
There's an effective scene near the beginning where you pick up a neurotic Capra employee, who's constantly asking Lena questions, and at times interrupting her own questions with questions. But as soon as she shuts off her Capra tech at Lena's request, her demeanor changes, and she becomes more calm and relaxed. It's both an interesting angle to her character as well as a great bit of world building, showing how Capra's tech has effectively rewired people's brains. Similarly, there's a couple of German lads you pick up later who are convinced that Lena is a robot. They've grown so accustomed to Capra's self-driving cabs that the mere thought of a human-operated cab is hard for them to believe, and their probing questions are slightly insensitive at best and dehumanizing at worst. But sadly, I think NeoCab falls victim to the classic tell don't show problem, and the flatness of its presentation works against the few effective moments it has. Now that I think about it, flat is how I'd describe NeoCab as a whole. Something about it feels unfinished, like the devs got 70% of the way through making it and just stopped. Tell me, why is there no ambience in the game? And this feels like a weird thing to say about something that's basically a visual novel, but where's the voice acting? It's usually not a problem in these types of games, but NeoCab puts a noticeable effort into its facial animations. Characters smile, frown, and raise an eyebrow periodically. But in a way, that's what makes it worse and further highlights how awkward the presentation is. And the awkwardness reaches critical levels in a scene near the end of the game where Lena confronts Savvy. It's 15 minutes of reverse shot with both characters cycling through the same 5 facial expressions while ill-fitting music plays in the background. Have a listen. I'm sorry, what? That music perfectly matches the tension of the scene. That's because I've tricked you, dear viewer. You ran up to the proverbial football and I pulled it away at the last second. That's Everart's theme from Disco Elysium. Now here's what actually plays in the scene. I'm sorry, are we having an argument or am I being gently rocked to sleep in my crib? But the dialogue system is what ruined NeoCab for me, and killed any desire to replay it. So the feel-grid bracelet that Savvy gives Lena tracks her emotional state, and certain dialogue options will be locked depending on her current mood. The problem is that it's very easy to get locked into a path you didn't want, and what's worse is that at times it's very unclear which dialogue options will do that. Sometimes they'll be marked with a color around the border, and other times they won't. So all of a sudden I'll try to pick a dialogue option only for the game to tell me that Lena's too angry, sad, or can't concentrate because her stomach is acting up from a burger she ate earlier or something like that. I can hear the NeoCab fans rushing to their keyboards, so let me beat them to the punch. Yes, I know the game lampshades this at the end, but without wishing to spoil, that just frustrated me more because it meant I had even less agency in the story than I initially thought. In the end, I didn't feel like I was actually playing as Lena. I felt like I was controlling a little gnome on her shoulder who she only occasionally listens to.
Hello, me old chums.
Yeah, I think I've talked myself out of recommending NeoCab, but let me be clear, it isn't a bad game. It's a frustrating one. Frustrating because it's an admirable attempt at exploring some heavy subject matter. Frustrating because its core gameplay loop is so underdeveloped that it wasn't even worth mentioning in the review. Frustrating because the dialogue system is... You think I should finish this review? Ooh, see, I'd love to, but that burger I had earlier is doing a number on my stomach, so I gotta go, bye!
This guy is a Brooklyn cab driver, and he's making movies?